Hello. So today I'm going to show you how to create a Gen Do inspired shape collage. So first of all, here's the assignment, and on the left we have the project step directions, and the right side we have the project requirements. So looking at the step directions here on the left, the first step was to share the Google drawing by clicking the share button and then changing it to Winton Woods right here. Then you can click done. The second step said to turn in the project on Echo so that I can watch you while you work on it. This is the best thing so that I can help you when you have a question, see what your progress is, and just be able to give you better one-on-one advice if I can see what you're actually doing on the Google drawing. Okay, number 3 here says to explore Gen Do's artwork. So you should have already done that if you have made it to this demonstration video. So you should have already clicked this link right here to see all of her really interesting digital artwork with lots of shapes, lots of colors, lots of layers and overlaps, shapes within shapes. If you have not looked at those yet, please click this button here first. Then number 5 is watching this demonstration video on how to create the shapes collage. Okay, so looking over here on the right side, it says project requirements. You must have at least one color scheme present. So this could be warm colors, cool colors, complementary colors. If you forget what color schemes are, feel free to look back on Echo when we did the color wheel worksheet. All of those on that color wheel worksheet are considered color schemes. Okay, project requirement number 2, you must have 4 or more rectangles or circles or squares in your background to kind of fill up the background. Grid or blocks is kind of a good word for that. I'll show you how to do that in a second. You must have at least one shape inside each of those background blocks. You must involve layering your shapes in multiple places so that you can create at least 3 layers. So this would be like smaller shapes inside larger shapes to add detail and interest. The last project requirement says you must involve repeating shapes in multiple places to create unity. So repeating a certain shape multiple times to kind of make it look like it's one whole piece. Okay, down here in the bottom right corner, I see a tip. It says experiment with rotating shapes, changing the shape sizes, copying and pasting shapes if you want it to look exactly the same, and changing the border weights. Okay, so let's go ahead through each of these steps and do one together on my screen as an example so that you can understand how to make your own special Gen Do inspired shapes collage. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is change the background color. Right now, this like checkered gray and white background, it means it's invisible. So I'm going to right click and then I'm going to go to background. And right now it's set to transparent, so I'm going to pick a color. And remember, we have to have at least one color scheme. So I think I'm going to make my background colors cool colors, which would be blues, purples, and greens. Okay, so I'm going to start with a purple of some kind first. Maybe this one? I don't know. Looks good. And then from here, it says you have to have 4 or more rectangles, squares, or circles to fill up your background, kind of like a grid or block, blocks in your background. So we're going to go to the shape tool up here, this tool. We're going to go to the shapes, and you can literally pick any square, any circle, any rectangle. Really, any of these would work, but the like fancy ones like the star and the moon and the zigzag, like those are probably ones you want to save for details later. Think more basic shapes for that background for like the grid or blocks. You can do the fancy smaller shapes later. So I'm just going to start with a basic triangle. You can place the shapes anywhere you want. Let's say I choose a rectangle, like maybe over here in the top right. Okay, and then my color scheme that I wanted for this background was cool colors. I'm going to change that color. So I'm going to go up here to the fill color tool. Remember that if the shape is highlighted, right now it is because of the blue line with these little squares around it. If it's highlighted, then this fill color tool does appear. But if it's not highlighted, that fill color tool will not be there as a choice. So if you're wanting to change the color of a shape, then you need to make sure the shape is selected, then go up to the fill color tool. So I made the background that purple, so maybe I'll make this, I think, a little bit of a darker, brighter blue. There you go. And from here, if I wanted to, I could change the border weight, which is the line on the outside of this shape. So if I go over here, this one right here is called border weight. And from here, I'll make it really big so you can see. It adds a nice thick outline, which can look really cool for some. You can kind of vary the sizes so that they're not all the same sized outline. So maybe this is one part of my grid or block for the background. Maybe for my next shape, I could do another square, I could do another rectangle, or maybe a circle or an oval just to add some interest. And I think for this one, I'm going to make the border weight a little smaller. Maybe one more bigger than that one, like a 4. You can kind of play around with it until it looks pleasing to you. And I think I'm going to change a different color. So I've got purple, blue, so green would be the other cool color. I think I'm going to do a little bit of a paler green. Actually, I liked the other one. See, it's okay to kind of go back and forth as you figure out what you like and don't like. Okay? And then I still have space down here. I need to fill up this background with my grids or blocks to kind of start me off. So I'm going to keep filling in with shapes, my background, until it looks like I've kind of completed a good portion of that background. So maybe for this next one, I'll do a rounded rectangle just to keep it interesting. And maybe I'll do it down here instead of on the right side, maybe a little longer. Okay, now it's overlapping this one. I think I don't want any overlapping on the background. We're going to do a lot of overlapping on the inside, so I don't feel like overlapping is needed for this like grid part that we're starting with. Okay, I'm going to change the border weight, maybe a little thicker, 8, and change the color to, I still want to stick to my cool color scheme, so maybe I'll do another blue, but a lighter blue. Yep, maybe one more lighter. Okay, and then I've still got space in this corner here, so I will continue to fill that up with blocks. So maybe I'll do another circle over here. Trying to pick more basic, simple shapes because I'll do more intricate shapes on the inside later. Change the border weight, a little skinnier I want that one to be. And then change the color to another cool color, maybe another purple. Nope. I think I want to go back to green, a lighter green. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, I've got a little bit of space here in the middle, so I'll make a smaller shape there. So maybe I could I'll do this one just to look different from all the others. It's still simple enough that it works. And I'll change the color to, that's a little too bright of a purple, I think. It doesn't really match the others. That's a little too close to the background, maybe a little lighter. That one looks good. And then change the border weight to maybe a 3. No, I'll do 4. There we go. Okay, so now I kind of have this grid or like blocks. I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shapes to work with that I can then place other shapes within each of these 5 like grids or blocks. Okay, so number 1 on the project requirements, you have to have one color scheme. Check. I do have a color scheme, and the color scheme is cool colors. Number 2, you must have 4 or more rectangles, squares, circles to fill up your background. I have 5, so we are good with that. And then the next one says you have to have at least one shape inside each of those background blocks. So I've got to have at least one shape in each of these colored blocks that we just made. And then the next step says you must involve layering the shape. So basically, when you put a shape on top of another shape on top of another shape, that is considered layering. It just adds more detail and interest. Right now, this kind of looks boring and incomplete. And if you repeat shapes, it will create unity, which is the element of art that makes an artwork feel whole or finished. So when you have repeated elements in it, and in this case, the repeated elements would be shapes. So at some point, I want to start repeating the same shapes. I already have two ovals, so technically I'm already starting that part, the repeating shapes, but that'll come more into handy later. Okay, so it says you have to have at least one shape inside each background block. So I'm going to go ahead to the shapes. And this is where I can start adding more of the intricate, kind of cooler looking shapes and really have fun with the layering. So maybe I want to do like this cloud shape, maybe like over here. Really, there's no right or wrong on where you want to place these, how you want to do it. You can use this little circle up here to kind of play around with the angling or rotating the shapes. That was part of the tip here, changing the shape sizes. With these inside shapes, I think I'm going to switch color schemes to a warm color scheme, which would be red, orange, and yellow. So I think this cloud I'm going to make maybe red. Ooh, it really pops. Maybe I'll do the opposite. I'll start with yellow and work my way in. I think I'm going to do multiple clouds on top of each other to really layer that. So I'm going to go back to shapes and do it again. Maybe put like a shape within a shape here. But instead, do each color. So there's my red, or I've got yellow, then orange. Now red would be next. There's the red. And then I can play with the border weights too. So notice I clicked on the yellow so that I can change the border weight. You can always go back and change certain shapes. So maybe like those two. That kind of looks interesting. And then I can keep filling in all of these shapes with different ones. Okay. One more thing I want to show you, just in case you come across this problem as you are going through your artwork. If you're coming across one where, see how this goes, like this red is in front of the shape here. If you want to change the, arrange the layering and make it a little different, like maybe you want something to go behind versus in front, there's this arrange button up here, like a tab. And so if you have it selected, so let's select this red kind of cloud, and you can go to the arrange and go to order. And this is where you can send it backward a layer. So sometimes, see, I clicked that and it didn't go. Sometimes that does happen. I have to click it multiple times. I'm not really sure why it does that. So I can click send to back, as then it'll go all the way to the back of the layer. So now it's behind these shapes. And then if I go back to arrange, order, I can bring all the way to front or bring forward. If it says bring forward or bring backward, it just means like bringing it up one layer or back one layer. If you say bring to front, it'll go all the way up front, doesn't matter how many layers, or send to back, it'll go all the way in the back, no matter how many layers. So if you ever have a problem where you're like, oh, my shape disappeared, and it's like this, and it's behind, maybe, it can be really hard to click on it then because your computer doesn't think that you're clicking on anything but the big shape that's in front of it. So like in this case, my little red cloud kind of disappeared. So to find that back, I would have to move the big shape out of the way, then find my red cloud, put it where I want it to be, and then put the big shape back. So sometimes students are like, oh, a shape disappeared and I can't find it. That's usually the instance, is that the arrange was used in a way where it kind of went behind a bigger shape and then it's hard to click and find it. Okay, and so then for example here, it disappeared behind that one because we clicked it to be sent all the way back. So I have to move all of these to find it. And then what I would want to do, if I want it to be back in front again, I have to go to arrange, order, bring all the way to the front. Now, if I put this back into place, it stays in front no matter what. Okay, and so then from here on out, I would just keep adding more and more detail in all of my shapes and making sure that I'm repeating shapes to create unity. This would be considered repeating shapes here for sure. The ovals will be repeating shapes. Um, and then I've got a cold or a cool color scheme and a warm color scheme. I will show you my example when it's all finished. Here's my finished example. I have all of the project requirements done. I've done all of the project step directions. I noticed how well I filled my space. I even at the end added some smaller circles repeated. I copied and pasted them actually so that I knew that they would be the same exact size, the same color, the same shape. So that helps me with the repeating shapes in Unity. I also repeated a couple of these arrows that I found when I went to shapes. I went to arrows down here and I found some interesting shapes and arrows to put in to fill in the space. So this would be a completed project that matches all the requirements. From here, you could also experiment with the gradient colors. So for example, if I wanted to click on this shape and then instead of making it for the fill color, right now it's set to like a normal basic fill color, I could always play around with these gradients and see how that might change. So now the sun looks like it's kind of glowing. I could do the same with this moon, click on that shape and then go to the fill color and change it to gradient, which is a smooth transition from dark to light, and kind of play with the colors in that sense. Maybe even this big green one could look cool. Let's see, go to gradient. So just kind of, I don't think I like that one. That looks too similar to this color. I think I'm going to go back. This black button will undo anything. But the gradient can be a nice way to kind of play around with what something looks like, especially at the end when you think you're done. Then it's kind of nice to see like the before and after and make your decisions that way. I think that these circles might look cooler if I made them all like this. And just kind of play around with the colors and gradients when you think you're done. You've got some extra time. Then you can kind of see like what you really like and what you don't like. Okay, and then it should be already turned in since that was the second step of the project directions. So after you're done, it automatically saves and you don't have to worry about turning it in a second time.